Hi everyone, it's Good Friday, and I wanted to read an excerpt from my book that is relevant, I think, to the day. But first, I wanted to say that most of my book I tried to write so that it would be accessible for people of all faiths or of no faith. But there are a couple of chapters that are a bit Jesus-y, and this chapter 3, is very Jesus-y. So I think if that bothers you, I think you could still get something out of the book. Just maybe skip that chapter, and don't listen to me because I'm about to read it. But this is chapter 3 of my book, which is The Long Night, Readings and Stories to Help You Through Depression. And the chapter is called God Suffers With Us. I'm writing this now with the perspective and hindsight of nearly a decade. I tried to remember what it felt like to be in the pit, in the depths of depression, a time when I didn't know how to get through or even if it would ever end. But our minds are programmed to forget the full intensity of extreme pain, and I've worked hard to release it from my body through centering prayer, biofeedback, yoga, therapy, exercise, and countless deep, slow breaths. When I began writing this book, I didn't want to climb back down into that pit, but I had to find a way to write from my own experience of being there. So I tied a rope around my waist and lowered myself carefully down into my old emails, journal entries, and blog posts. I interviewed my younger self. How did you feel? What was it like? And I remembered this. My plans wrecked. My body wrecked as well, in constant pain and weakness, lying in bed for months because my head hurt too much to move. Avoiding people because the pain in my spirit made it impossible to chat about ordinary things. Too tired to get out of bed, but too overwhelmed with anxious thoughts to actually rest. Thinking back to the person I used to be, clever, funny, and wise, and wondering if I would ever be those things again. Reaching out to a God who seemed to have stepped away just when I needed God the most. It was during one of those dark days, in bed and in pain, that I ordered a little crucifix online. The churches I'd grown up in had embraced the symbolism of an empty cross, focusing instead on the resurrection more than Jesus' sufferings. But I knew that meditating on Jesus as he suffered on the cross was an important practice to some Christians, and I was willing to try anything to gain some felt connection to God. I had hoped to find some understanding, some clarity in Hebrews 4, a passage that always seemed so hopeful. Therefore, since we have a great high priest who has ascended into heaven, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold firmly to the faith we profess. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to empathize with our weaknesses, but we have one who has been tempted in every way, just as we are, yet he did not sin. Let us then approach God's throne of grace with confidence, so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need. That's Hebrews 4:14 through 16. What does it mean that Jesus is a high priest who can empathize with our weakness? Empathy implies that he has gone through it himself. Did Jesus have migraines? Was he afflicted with a chemical imbalance that caused his mind to sink into the pit of depression? Did he have days when he struggled to get out of bed for more than half an hour at a time? When the crucifix I ordered finally arrived, I took out the little plastic Jesus. It seemed so strange. It was just a little Jesus doll, when what I wanted was the real man, as present in my heart, mind, and spirit as he used to feel. But one day, when the pain was at its worst, I placed my fingers on the nails in Jesus' hands, studied his face and his body, and began to cry. I understood. Jesus was in pain too. He was suffering too. I might not have understood why it was happening to me or why God wouldn't answer my prayers to take the pain away. But at that moment, I knew that Jesus was with me. Somehow, whether he'd known the specific pain of migraines and depression on earth didn't matter. I knew that he understood. For the days and months to come, I laid in bed, clutching the crucifix and crying. I'd wanted God to heal me, but instead God had offered me empathy in my pain. All my life, I'd wanted to be like Jesus in his witty repartee, his compassion, and his ability to comfort and heal. But instead, I found I related most to his twisted form on the cross, eyes shut in pain, not yet dead, not yet resurrected, not yet ascended. On my little crucifix, Jesus' features were not twisted in agony. If you didn't know better, you might almost think he looked peaceful. But I thought that I recognized the movement inward that a long-suffering spirit makes. It is close to meditation. You have less to do with the world, with what is going on around you. Physical and emotional sensations take over, and then somehow you sink below those sensations to a deeper place. I've experienced this kind of sinking and focus when the migraines are at their worst. The pain is so overwhelming that it takes everything I have just to make it through each moment. Crying, calling out, or even cringing in pain would take too much energy. All I can do is focus on my breath, following each inhale and exhale. If you were to see me in that state, you might think I looked peaceful. If you're reading this book, you may be in a time of pain as I was. The migraines hurt. The depression hurts. Physical pain is a real symptom of depression, along with emotional pain. And the feeling of being cut off from God hurts. You may have prayed for healing as I did, but haven't received it. I don't know how long your pain will last. I don't know how long the night will be. I don't know why God has gone silent, though some of the mystics I'll quote here give us hints. But I know that God has not abandoned you. God is with you, and not only that, God suffers with you, the same way God suffered with me back then. There's more to the chapter, but I'll stop there. I didn't really have a way to close this time except to say, I know this is a strange time. Everything's strange. And Holy Week, Easter week, is maybe one of the strangest things about this time, celebrating events of 2,000 years ago, when we're going through our own earth-shaking events right now. So really all I wanted to say is, I see you. I see that it's hard right now, that it's confusing, and you're not alone, and this won't last forever.